Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Santoro. I'm the Director of Policy Research and Housing Support for the state of Connecticut. I want to thank you all for your interest in participating in the roundtable discussion, um, specifically set aside for our community partners relative to the pre-draft input for our 2024-2025 annual action plan for housing and community development. This is the fifth year of our 5-year consolidated plan for a housing and community development plan. You should have, I hope, gotten a copy of the agenda, which is up on your screen right now, as well as a current identification of our priorities, which I will put up right now so that everybody can see what we're talking about. I'll lay out the protocol for everybody. We have a big audience in attendance. I want to thank you all for your interest and your participation. We'll be continuing to load people in. Everybody should be coming in muted. You will have the opportunity to ask us questions, to make comments, etc. But what I'll lay out for you is the process overall, and then we can talk about our programs, our priorities, etc. And that's on the other document, so that's fine. Short version. We go through a series of community engagement and public participation, both before we create a draft, after we create a draft, and then we actually have a legislative hearing after we have what we hope is a final draft before submission to HUD. From a timing standpoint, we are having meetings this week, which also starts a 15-day written public comment period, which I believe starts tomorrow. Whereby, in addition to any comments or questions that you put on the table today, you have the opportunity to submit written comments to us. All of that information will be taken into consideration in the preparation of our draft action plan. It will then go out again for public comment. We will hold another set of hearings with our state agency partners, with you, our community partners, as well as with the general public. That will lead to the creation of the actual draft to be considered by both the legislature and for submission to HUD. We hope to have a draft mid-February to the end of February. Start that public comment and public participation period shortly thereafter, as well as have our legislative hearing before the end of April, so that we can submit our action plan to HUD on or before May 15th. HUD then has 45 days to review and approve our plan in anticipation of the start of our program year, which is July 1st. Obviously, the sooner we get it done, the sooner we get it to HUD, the sooner they can submit and approve, I should say. Regardless, our program year starts July 1st. That being said, what I'm going to talk about today, I'll go over very quickly the 6 programs that are covered by this action plan. But you are and have the opportunity to ask us questions about the department, make comments about our priorities for these 6 programs. But for the department overall, this is also an opportunity for us to start the next 5-year planning process, or the planning process for our next 5-year plan. That plan is due July 1st of 2025. And those, the input, data management, data collection for that activity will be starting shortly. So I want to be clear. This is about the final action plan under our existing 5-year plan. Very shortly, probably next month, if not the month after, you'll start to see notices and solicit input for the next 5-year plan. Okay. Basically, today will go this way. I'll do a little bit more talking, and then we're going to turn it over to you. Comments, questions, etc. What I ask is that you use the raise your hand function in Teams. That will allow us to actually go in the order in which people raise your hand. And we ask that you keep your comments or questions 3 to 5 minutes if we can. We will also, as I said, take written comment. And if you have other questions outside of what we're talking about today, you can always reach out directly to me, Michael Santoro, michael.santoro@ct.gov. I'll introduce my cohort in crime, Laura Watson. Laura, give me a little wave if you would. You can also reach out to Laura with any questions or comments associated with the action plan. So let me switch real quick so we can get to you guys. The 6 programs covered by this action plan specifically are federal formula grants. They are the Recovery Housing Program, formerly referred to as the Community Development Block Grant Recovery Housing Program, or RHP for short. It's specifically intended to support individuals recovering from substance abuse who are on a path to self-sufficiency. CDBG Small Cities, or the Community Development Block Grant Small Cities Program. Many of the people in the room are from our small cities. You guys have been, hopefully, grantees in the past or are looking to be grantees in the future. We currently are planning to use public housing infrastructure, public housing modernization preservation, public infrastructure, and public service for the majority of our CDBG small cities funds, and I'll get into dollar amounts in just a second. We do not intend to target individual homeowner loan programs, but that is subject to your input. So if that is something that your community wants to see, this is your opportunity to put that on the table. ESG, the Emergency Solutions Grant, formerly known as the Emergency Shelter Grant, and as that name implies, those funds are predominantly targeted in support of our homeless shelters, the coordinated access network, and the systems associated with homelessness and the prevention of homelessness here in the state of Connecticut. HOPWA, Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS. This program is very small for us. The vast majority of the HOPWA money goes directly to our larger entitlements, the big cities. We only get about $300,000 a year, whereas they get millions under HOPWA. We support basically 24 units with our limited dollars, but happy to take input on that program as well. And the 2 big production programs, the National Housing Trust Fund and the Home Investment Partnerships programs, those, for lack of better terminology, produce new housing opportunities, units. They are very similar in what they do and how they do it. National Housing Trust Fund is targeted at 30% of the area median income. Home predominantly serves 15 to 80% of AMI, although it can serve lower income households as well. Give you a little snapshot of what we have accomplished in the last year. You should have gotten this in an email. If not, we can send it to you. But in short, we're pretty much on track relative to production as we have in the past. We are a little behind, in part due to COVID-related supply chain issues. But we currently have about 4,000 units under construction across the state of Connecticut that will occupy somewhere between the next 1 and 18 months. In addition to that, we've got about 3,900 projects in the hopper that we anticipate closing on financing in the next 3 to 6 months, with those being completed in the following 12 to 18 months. So this is a quick snapshot, what we have, what we've done, what is underway. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we really want to hear from you about where you believe our priorities are, should be, and where we hope to go from here, both for this next year in the final action plan, but also in anticipation of the next 5-year consolidated plan. I think that's it. I'll end there. Oh, let me put up the budget just so you can see what we anticipate getting in terms of dollars. We do not have final numbers from HUD. That was the time frame I was looking for. This is what we got in 22-23, what we got in the current year, 23-24. We anticipate getting at least that much. So our plan is based on an estimated level funding budget from HUD. Theoretically, we could get more. We might get slightly less in a line item or two, but we have not gotten any information with regard to a reduction from HUD as of this time. We will not be submitting our plan to HUD until we have actual numbers, but in order to meet the time frame for plan development and submission, we need to use these as an estimate. Okay. With that, I'm going to open the floor up. I'm going to stop talking, which is difficult for me sometimes, but I'll do my best to shut up and listen. Please raise your hand again using the function in Teams, and we will hopefully answer your questions and also get some information from you on where you think we should go. The floor is yours. Everybody's happy with our priorities as they exist, which is okay. But if you have questions about our programs or anything else that we do at the department, not just limited to these 6 programs, the specific plan is on these 6 programs, but we're happy to answer questions or take comments on the department overall. And Christy Stewart, you are up. Please introduce yourself. Let me state that real quick. If you do have a comment or a question, please identify yourself and who you represent as part of your question or your comment. Christy.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. My name is Christy Stewart. I'm with the Housing Collective, specifically working for the Centers for Housing Opportunity throughout the state. Just a comment, I guess, more than a question, but I'm anxious to hear more specifically how the Department of Housing is going to be laser focused on 0 to 50% area median income units. As you know, as all the indicators show that that's really where the gap is. And also just have a quick question, Michael, and you don't have to answer this right now, we could do it offline, but just curious if if you've thought about whether the new plan going forward will identify specific housing targets in those area median income brackets.
Thanks, Christy. And I'll answer the first one and then punt a little on the second one, but I'll try to do my best. With regard to the first one, National Housing Trust Fund, one of these federal sources, specifically goes to assist 0 to 30% of AMI. Those funds clearly are being targeted for that, and we are using it in conjunction with another federal initiative, the Section 811 PRA program. We were recipients of grants in 2013 and 2019. There's a new application round coming up in February. We will be applying for the maximum grant that we are eligible for. And that program, which also targets 30% of AMI households, provides rental subsidies to support those disabled households. On top of all that, you may be aware we got $50 million in ARPA money. Those $50 million are also being targeted to 0 to 30% of AMI households. At the same time, not out the door yet, but in process, we're looking at our administration of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program and doing some project basings, again, specifically targeting, in this case, the 0 to 50% of AMI placement of those units. We've done a couple of initiatives specifically tied to homeless families, Head Start on Housing, which some of you may be aware of, but we're going to be hopefully in the next few months issuing an RFP to target placement in to be built or already built units. With regard to the next plan, this is the kind of information we want. In particular, we're looking for data sources that support documentation of need. One of the requirements for the new consolidated plan is that we leverage CHAS data, which is the Comprehensive Housing Assessment Survey. But HUD allows us to supplement that with local data sources. We've just completed, I should say it was about a year and a half ago, we did a study specifically targeting need for units for persons with disabilities. And OPM is about to come out with their housing and segregation study, both of which have some fairly robust data sources, which will help us to identify targets. I don't know that our plan will specifically identify or adopt geographic targets. That's part of the data collection process that we want to go through. Is there a need for that? Can we be more generic? Should we be more targeted? And some of you may be aware, there was also the Fair Share Housing Initiative that was passed as part of the last legislative session, and OPM is moving on that in accordance with their statutory requirements. So timing may align, but certainly all of that information will be incorporated into the planning process for that next 5-year plan. Thank you, Christy. Danielle C., you are up. Please introduce yourself and go to town.
Hi, thank you guys so much for doing this. So I'm the first selectman in Stonington, Connecticut, and not an expert in any of this by any means, but trying to learn more. So really appreciate it. Just two quick things that have come up with our team here. Since you brought it up, the home ownership loan program, we would love to see. We use some ARPA money to do a kind of pilot in town. It's still ongoing. We already have a wait list, and we've only done 3 homes, but we understand it's a very heavy lift, but also it's been able to keep some people in our community and in their homes that otherwise probably would have had to leave, because as we know, there's just no housing and nowhere for people to go. So that was one thing. And then the other thing, I wasn't sure if this has come up in conversation yet, but kind of expanding funding for the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program and the State Rental Assistance Program, if there was any conversations around more funding for that, but also any requirements around who can accept those. So thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the questions and the comment on the homeowner rehab program. I think it's important for all of our small communities that are interested in a homeowner rehab program to put that on the table. I'll leave that one the way it is. With regard to Section 8, we don't have control over how much money we get under the Section 8 program. It's federal allocation. Certainly, we take advantage of every opportunity to add Section 8 housing choice vouchers to our portfolio. We continue to do so. We've just recently applied for and received some additional VASH. Those are Veterans Assistance Supportive Housing vouchers. Those eventually turn into regular vouchers after a year. As far as the State Rental Assistance Program certificates go, we continue to ask for and identify growing need. Certainly, you can help us by encouraging your local elected state rep and state senator to know how important having access to additional rep is. We fully expend our rep budget as not down to the penny, but down to the dollar as we can on every year. So certainly, if more resources were thrown our way, we would certainly be able to put them to good use. So thank you for your interest and your support. And as we go forward, please encourage your local communities, your leaders, provide written comment to that effect. And in particular, if you have a waiting list of need, if you want to send that information to us, not individual household names, but number of kinds of activity, how many applications do you have? What are the kinds of work that you're seeing? How much are they needing to spend to get these programs out and to be effective? So thank you for your interest and your participation. Mr. Scarpati, you are up, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Michael. This is Kevin Scarpati, Mayor of the City of Meriden. I just kind of looking ahead as DOH has, plans for their next 5 years. And it's been a tremendous partnership here in the city of Meriden with Commissioner right on down to all the staff. So I appreciate everything you guys have done. And while I understand one of your comments earlier wasn't necessarily targeting geographic region or areas over your next 5-year plan, but from an affordability standpoint, I urge you to consider where cities and towns across the state of Connecticut are with regard to their percentage of housing stock when it comes to affordable housing units. For example, the city of Meriden is approaching, if not exceeding, 17% of our housing stock with affordable units, which far exceeds not only neighboring cities and towns here in central Connecticut, but many others. Several years ago, the state said, hey, can you try and be at 10%? We saw that and said, we're going to see your 10% and up you. And now we're exceeding 17, when I know there are cities and towns, probably colleagues on this call representing cities and towns that are far lower than the 10% threshold or even the 5%. And so I think overall we need to do a better job as a state of dispersing affordable housing, not in medium to large size cities and centering them in Meriden or towns our size. But I'd really like to see the state and DOH take a lead on looking at cities and towns that, quite frankly, haven't done their part or are far below that threshold, and spreading that across the state. So those are just kind of my comments as we look to the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. And obviously, it will be passed along. This is a publicly recorded forum. It will be out and available. And again, we'll have that conversation as we go forward. As I mentioned earlier, OPM, the Office of Policy Management, is looking at, as a result of Public Act 23207, the fair share housing methodology, and is considering first how to calculate what that fair share might be, and then discussion will be centered around what to do with those numbers once they have them. So I expect it to be a topic of conversation in the upcoming legislative session. And that is the forum relative to pushing that agenda item out. Certainly, the department has and will continue to consider placement of units on a geographic basis. But I will say it this way, we need units everywhere. So if we got units that we can get out the door today, tomorrow, next week, next month, we're going to do it. Well, at the same time, we're going to look at trying to promote affordable housing placement across all aisles. I didn't mention it earlier because it's really not part of this plan, but I will throw it out there. We are going to be launching in the next month or so a technical assistance initiative to assist our municipalities to implement their affordable municipal housing plans. All of the communities were required to submit municipal affordable housing plans under 8-30J of the Connecticut General Statutes. 157 out of 169 towns have done so, and we want to help them meet those identified plans and their own needs, in addition to everything else that is going on. So we're bringing on some technical assistance in a couple of different ways, but watch for that in the next month or so. And if we can help your town meet its affordable housing needs in accordance with your municipal affordable housing plan, we're going to have resources to help you do it. So thank you, Mr. Selectman. Appreciate the comments. I see. Next up is Kathy Schroeder. Kathy, please introduce yourself for those of you who don't know you.
Hi, Kathy Schroeder. I'm Deputy Director, City of New Haven, LCI Housing Development. That was a big, long title, which just means that I do all the housing development for the City of New Haven. I would like to thank the state of Connecticut for all the support that the City of New Haven has gained from the state and our collaboration on all of our housing developments. But I would like to fully support the gap financing that they provide, that the state provides to all of our affordable rental, as well as that new homeownership NOFO that has been put out there, that the City of New Haven will be hopefully utilizing on their homeownership, affordable homeownership. I also would like to figure out, we're looking forward at supportive permanent housing. That is where the City of New Haven is looking at. I'm very excited about that Head Start. I actually just referred several landlords here in New Haven that are in construction right now to utilize that. But what I did want to ask Michael, is there construction financing that goes along with that to get 3-bedroom units in these structures? Because a lot of them are 1 and 2s, right? You get maybe 4 or 5 3s. Is there construction financing that would go along with something like that if they utilize your Head Start as well?
So, for those of you who don't know, and Kathy, mute for a sec if you would, so we don't get feedback. Head Start on Housing is an initiative that the department launched in conjunction with the Office of Early Childhood. Participants in the state's Head Start program, which is an educational program, are actually being offered an opportunity to relocate using a Section 8 housing choice voucher in an initiative called Head Start on Housing. Basically, while also participating in a Head Start program, it allows that family to move to communities of higher opportunity in conjunction with that educational opportunity. To date, we've only been in operation for about 6 months, and we've already placed approximately 60 households and a little over 106 children, I think is the number. And there are a bunch more in the hopper. Kathy, you're right. We need to build more larger bedroom unit projects. And in support of what our friend in Meriden put out, in particular, outside of our urban centers. We are working on that promotion. We encourage larger bedroom unit and design. We subsidize to a higher level larger bedroom units. So we encourage developers when they're looking at financing from us to do those larger bedroom units. So we're going to continue to keep that on the top of our list and move that initiative forward. Happy to hear you're going to submit under the homeownership NOFA. Very good. For those who don't know, in conjunction with CHFA, we're going to be doing some additional activity associated with first-time home buyers and starter home creation. So thank you, Kathy. Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? Comments, questions? Anything you want to know or anything you want us to know about what your needs are in your community or in your region? Okay. I want to reiterate, we're going to be taking written comment for the next 15 days starting tomorrow. Please take a moment, send an email. Doesn't have to be a formal letter. Emails are more than acceptable. You can email me, michael.santoro@ct.gov, or Laura Watson, laura.watson@ct.gov. Any comments received will be included in the draft plan, and they will be responded to in some way, shape, or form. It also helps us, if we have it in writing, to convey that up the decision tree. It'll go to our commissioner and even onto the governor's office for consideration relative to the creation of priorities. Again, not just for this next 1-year action plan, but it will be as part of that next 5-year planning process. Any information, any data sources that you have relative to need at your local level, in your municipality, or for your region. Go back to Stonington. They have a wait list for a homeowner rehab program. Give us the information. The more information we have, the better decisions we can make as a state agency to help you address your needs. And that's the key for us. We are not sitting here on the mountaintop telling you what you need to do. We want to help you do what is best for and in your community and in your region. So, one last shot, anybody, comments or questions? Oh, Christy, I see you waving your real hand instead of the fake one. Go for it, Christy.
No, sorry, too many buttons. I'm just curious, Michael, if you all would be open to a virtual regional session certainly in the 3 regions where the Centers for Housing Opportunity work.
You mean in terms
of
of
like a
the
feedback.
conversation?
Yeah, we'll definitely pull together comments, et cetera, from each of the regions and shoot them to you in written form, but wondering if you would be open to coming to Litchfield, Eastern, and Fairfield County to listen, sort of as a listening session.
In terms
That's putting you on the
of,
spot.
for the next 5-year plan, that is absolutely
Yeah.
on the books. That
Okay.
is our intent is, we're going to be engaging a consultant to actually help us with the next 5-year plan, with the intent to do actual in the field, live roundtable, conversation. So thank you. And, we're probably going to send them your way to help coordinate.
Yeah, let us know how we can support that. Thank you.
Will do. No, thank you, Christy. Anybody, anything else? All right, I want to thank you all for your attendance, for your interest. Please, if you haven't read our current action plan, take a look at it. The new draft, based on the comments that we have received and any comments we continue to receive over the next couple of weeks, will be incorporated into that new plan. And your input is extremely valuable to make that happen. Thank you all for your time, your interest, and your participation. I hope you will when the draft plan comes out. Again, participate, provide comment, support not only what we do, but help us to support you in what you're doing. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great afternoon.